Okay. This morning I have a reading for you that I was um, pondering for myself over the past couple of days. And it's actually from the Yamas and Niyamas book by Deborah Adele. And I wanted to explore this morning the concept of tapas. So, in the yogic tradition, there are five yamas, which are restraints, and five niyamas, which are observances. And so the restraints are sort of how we operate and treat other people. And then the observances are more about how we operate in the world ourselves. And in the yogic tradition, the Sanskrit word tapas, it translates to heat or burning, and it represents the internal fire that fuels transformation. So Deborah Adele describes it as the self-discipline that has the power to reshape our nature or our character. And it's not like rigid punishment or anything, but more like a commitment to something greater than comfort or convenience. Now, I had a spiritual teacher say recently that the problem with the world as we know it right now is that we're all drowning in comfort and our capacity to hold discomfort is very little. And I started thinking about that. Um, and I think we're all guilty of trying to seek comfort or at the very least avoid discomfort through our habits and our um, distractions. But the transformation that we desire lies on the other side of sitting with the discomfort. So I'm going to just read directly from her book this morning because it's quite a beautiful reading, and we'll see how it all lands with you. So she says, my husband talks about growing up on a large acreage outside of town. Periodically, to care for this land, his father would do a controlled burn. My husband watched as his father diligently prepared by checking the wind speed, wind direction, and weather forecast for any unwanted or unforeseen surprises. And then my husband watched in disbelief as his dad lit a match to the field and everything went up in flames. As a small child, none of this made sense to him, especially as he gazed at the stark after effects of the burn. Everything looked charred and ruined, but within a few weeks, tiny green growth would sprout through the seemingly dead land, bringing new life and beauty, a kind of new beginning. My husband began to understand that the land had to be burned of its debris in order for it to produce its luscious bounty once again. Tapas literally means heat and can be translated as catharsis, austerities, self-discipline, spiritual effort, change, tolerance, or transformation. Tapas has the sense of cooking ourselves in the fire of discipline to transform ourselves into something else. It is our determined effort to become someone of character and strength. Much like cooking an egg denatures the egg, changing it into a different structure, tapas eventually changes our nature, turning us into a cauldron that can withstand any of life's challenges. Tapas is the day-to-day choice to burn non-supportive habits of the body and the mind, choosing to forsake momentary pleasures for future rewards. In India, some spiritual renunciates practice extreme austerities. In the dead of winter, they sit for 3 hours in the cold, dressed only in a loincloth. They rig a container so that it will drip cold water on their heads and run down their almost naked bodies for the entire 3 hours. They do this practice for 45 days in a row. In the heat of summer, they build 5 small fires around themselves and one in a container on their head, and they sit for 3 hours in the blazing heat. They build these fires daily and sit for 3 hours for 45 days. This is done to establish themselves in a firm, unmovable center that is not rocked or disturbed by any extremes the external world might bring. They practice staying no matter what. Our practice does not need to be this daunting. There's a lot of cold plunging going on nowadays, and various practices like that that are reminiscent of some of these more extreme practices in India. Um, much like the controlled burn, we need to pay attention to what is possible, what is safe, and what is timely for us in our current life context. When we have tested the wind, we can light the match, willingly burn away our laziness and our selfish desires. Whether we practice tapas by showing up on our mat for a regular posture practice or through constant acts of selfless service, we offer ourselves to the next higher version of us. We willingly stand in the heat so we might produce luscious bounty within our lives. So, actually, I wasn't going to read the next bit, but I'm going to. This guideline not only speaks to our personal effort, but also those cathartic times of almost hopeless desperation when we find ourselves in the pain of unexpected loss or debilitating sickness or the throes of a life that seems like it has been turned upside down. It's almost as if God has checked the winds and started the fire. Started the fire, and we ourselves are the field that is being burned. And like my husband who watched his father burn a field, none of it makes sense to us at the time. And yet, it is these times that shape and mold us into someone of depth. Our debris gets burned away, and we are left more humbled and strengthened by the mystery of what is beyond our grasp of control or understanding. In these darkest times of pain, loss, and confusion that weave something profound in us. There's a bumper sticker which states, "A crisis is a terrible thing to waste." We can chuckle all we want, but there is great truth in that statement. Tapas can take us to the place where all of our resources are used up, where there is nothing left but weakness, where all of our so-called props have been taken away. It is in this barren place where we have exhausted all that we have and all that we are that new strength is shaped and character is born if we choose to fearlessly open ourselves up to the experience. It is perhaps the greatest gift that life could offer us. So for me, tapas is right now present in the experience of my marriage coming to an end and sort of burning down and staying in the discipline of like wanting to live in truth. So not covering up, not deflecting or distracting, but sitting with the extreme discomfort that comes through a separation. And what's really allowed me to get to this place where I can sit and feel like I'm being burned by the fire is the practices of the pillars of yoga. So getting on my mat, practicing drishti where I set my eyes, practicing my breath, getting on my mat when I don't feel like getting on my mat, exercising every day when I don't feel like it. And so these little things that we do daily, they're like putting money in your spiritual bank so that when the field gets lit on fire, that you have the capacity to stop running away from the fire and just stand in it and be burned so that something new and fresh can come. In order to be purified through the fires of tapas, we must first recognize our habit of seeking comfort. Like, where do we go to? What's the go? How do we distract ourselves when we're comfortable or when we're uncomfortable? And to recognize there's nothing wrong with comforting yourself, but also the moment that you get, catch your breath, to step back into that fire is actually the healthiest thing. Otherwise, we're just prolonging it. It's like dripping out. It's like Chinese water torture, dripping one drop at a time on your forehead instead of just letting all the water come and getting it over with. One of the metaphors that I love to think about is if you imagine a piece of clay shaped into a beautiful vase or a vessel or something, and if it's left as it is, it remains fragile and unfinished. But by placing it in a kiln where it's exposed to the intense heat, it hardens into something durable, functional, and complete. So similarly, in our lives, when we might resist discomfort, but without it, we remain unfinished. We're like an unfinished work of art. Tapas is the heat that strengthens us, and it's in the fire that our being is tempered and we become resilient and disciplined and transformed. So I have a couple of questions to sort of ponder around this. If you like to just listen, or if there's some of you like to write down, where in your life are you avoiding the necessary heat of transformation? Maybe there's a friendship that needs to be let go of, or maybe there's a habit that's not serving you that you're hanging on to. Maybe there's a new skill that you need to learn to get to the next level of your life and it feels hard for you and you're avoiding it. Maybe you go to the yoga studio and you do the same thing every day, but you don't, you know, um, put up your hand and share in a group because that's uncomfortable for you. Look at the places where you avoid and um, you stay in your comfort zone. And then what is one small disciplined action that you can take to strengthen your inner fire? And maybe you share a personal story with someone that feels hard for you. Maybe you pick up one new habit, like getting up 15 minutes earlier every day, or um, going for a 20-minute walk every day, whether you feel like it or not. Okay, then how do you typically respond to discomfort? Do you lean in or pull away? I think it's our tendency as human beings to pull away, but the more practice you get with leaning in, you realize it's like that metaphor of the buffalo and the cattle that I've used in the past. You lean in and the storm actually passes more quickly. You just like it goes by you. And in what areas of your life do you want to grow, but fear the discomfort of the process? This is a really great question. Where do I say I want to grow, but actually I let the fear of, maybe I want to run not me personally, but if I wanted to run a marathon, maybe I really fear the new standard I would have to hold, the discipline I would have to acquire to get there. And what would it look like to embrace self-discipline from a place of love rather than obligation? A lot of times we resist discipline because it feels like an obligation. We're doing it, Baron Baptiste would call it, from an outformed place, what other people think we should do to make ourselves a certain way for other people or to fit in or to be something for someone else. But when we access discipline from an informed place, like I know in my gut that this is expansive for me, that living in truth will set me free, and so I'm willing to be consumed by the fire, then that comes from love. Like I love myself enough to want to live in truth. So when it's coming from an outformed place, the discipline will feel very forced. When it's coming from an informed place, you'll know it'll feel expansive, not less hard, but more expansive. So identify your fire. What is it? Choose one area of your life where you want to develop more discipline. Maybe create a small ritual around that place you want to transform. Reframe the discomfort. When resistance arises, just remind yourself that this is the fire that transforms me. So let's meditate and get this teaching, this wisdom of tapas in our bones. So sit up nice and tall and close your eyes. Take a deep, full breath in Exhale fully. Do that a few more times. Big, full inhales right to the crown of your head. Exhale fully. Inhale completely till you can't breathe in any longer. And exhale totally till you're so empty. Now inhale fully. And then pause at the top and take 2 more sips of air. And hold that air at the top. Let it linger at the crown of your head. And let all the breath go right to the bottom and hold. Linger in the emptiness. And take a normal breath in and allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm. And put your attention on your body now. Feel your spine tall and strong, as though it's rooted to the earth and reaching for the sky simultaneously. Scan your whole body from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head for any areas of resistance or tightness. Just acknowledge them without judgment. Recognize your body as a vessel, a space where life occurs for you from. And just imagine now a small flame glowing at the center of your body, center of your belly, rather, just below the navel. With each inhale, see this flame growing brighter and stronger. With each exhale, feel any doubts or hesitations dissolving in the warmth of the fire. This is your tapas, the fire of transformation, burning away what no longer serves you. Feel this heat as a source of power, not struggle, a guiding light for growth, and stoke the inner flame. Now ask yourself, and then just allow for whatever bubbles up to bubble up. What part of my life is calling for transformation? Perhaps it's health, relationship, work, balance of your time and energy. Maybe it's expressing yourself fully. And then where can I show up with more discipline and devotion? Don't overthink it. Just allow images to arise or feelings. And what am I willing to let go of to become stronger? Let the answers come naturally without forcing them. It's been my experience that if something pains you a little bit, to think of letting go of it, that might be the thing. And place your hands over your belly and just feel the warmth of your inner fire. And internally, repeat, I embrace the fire of transformation. I trust this process. I embrace the fire of transformation. I trust this process. I embrace the fire of transformation. I surrender to this process. Now take one last deep breath in and empty it all out. And slowly let your eyes open. Welcome back. So I would love to open it up now for anyone who wants to share.